Her from, now that we got that out of the way, Julie from Alaska.
I am. I'm Julie Stricker. I am a writer editor with the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension. I've been here for just about a year and a half, which is about as long as I've been an ACE member. I think they made me a member before I even started working. And I am looking for outlets. We have very few media outlets up here, and I have lots of great stories and no place to put them. So I'm looking for ideas.
Great, thanks. Whitney Baxter.
I'm Whitney Baxter. I work at Iowa State's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences as a communication specialist. I've been an ACE member for probably 5 years now, I think. I've been a little more active in the social media learning communities, but I thought I'd join this one and try to be a little more active in it since I do a lot of writing, mainly focus on student features, and I'll do some news releases once in a while as well. And I'm on the same team as Anne.
Great. Ruth just went off video, so maybe she's got something going on. So we'll go on to Gail Ellis.
Hi, I'm Gail Ellis. Excuse me. I work for Oklahoma State University and the Division of Agriculture. Elisa here on the call is one of my peers. I'm the editorial coordinator, and I often am sending out media pitches or fielding media requests. And I'm just interested in learning more about how everyone else does it, comparing notes on, new ways you all are looking into things and working with media.
Great. John Hawley, who actually has put Montana State in his name on the thing. So John, we know who you are. Where are you from?
Well, then I guess I don't need to introduce myself, Chris, but no. Good to see everyone. I'm John Hawley. I'm Director of Communications for Montana State University Extension here in very cold Bozeman, where it's -40 wind chills. Really excited today just to hear more tips and tricks from all of you on your media relations strategies. Been with Montana State for right at a year now, and so I've had some things work well and some other things not work so well. So I'm looking forward to learning from y'all. And I've been an ACE member for almost 6 years now.
Great, thanks. Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Ayenge. I am an assistant professor at Kansas State University in their Department of Communication and Agricultural Education. I've been an ACE member for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And I've never been involved with a learning community, but this kind of overlaps with some of my freelance work and then also the courses I teach. So I figured it might be a good place to start out and see what it's all about.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Zach.
Yes, sorry. Hello, my name is Zach Laban. I'm the digital production specialist for West Virginia State University. In contrast to the -40, it's like 70 degrees right now. So sorry about that. I've been with ACE since 2020. And the thing that I hope to gain from this today, this is all very foreign territory for me. I'm usually running around with the camera. So getting the writing side of things and all of that is something that I hope to try to attempt to learn. So it's just all a learning experience right now for me.
Great, thanks, Zach. Andrea.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Putnam. I'm Assistant Vice President for Communications and Partnerships at APLU's Office of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resources. And sorry, I was running a few minutes late. I have been an ACE member for a little bit over a year. I got a tremendous amount out of the conference last year and looking forward to this year. And it's an exciting time at APLU. And we're just kind of starting to embark more and more on media relations. So I have a lot to learn on that. And thank you for organizing and hosting this.
Oh, sure, no problem. We'll play the song for you at the end, Andrea, for the people who came in late. Elisa, is it? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Or Alyssa or Elisa?
It's Elisa.
Oh.
I am the Ag Research Communications Coordinator for Oklahoma State University. So it's my job to promote all things ag. And I'm always looking to learn more about the ins and outs of other areas outside of writing for marketing because I'm newer to other areas. And today, I don't know that I have specific insight into what I'd like to see in future, but I thought perhaps listening to others talk today would give me ideas of things I'd like to see in future. So.
Great. I don't know your first name. I just see Jay Stewart on the screen.
My name is Julie Stewart, and I'm a communications specialist in the College of Ag and Life Sciences at Iowa State University. I work with Whitney Baxter and Ann Robinson. I have been an ACE member for a little over 2 years, and do most of my writing is from an internal perspective within the college, and just interested to hear what everybody has to say.
Well, thank you, Julie. By the way, we're going to have to start capping these meetings for Iowa people. I mean, this is too much. There are too many people on these meetings. They dominate. Now we'll go back to a person who needs no introduction, but I'm going to ask her to do it anyway. Ruth Borger from University of Florida.
Wow, that's the nice thing to say, Chris, I think. So anyway, sorry, I had to take a call. Ruth Borger, I'm at the University of Florida IFAS. I now am a communications specialist with our Citrus Research and Education Center. So thank you. And go Iowa. I love Iowa. So what I want from today, I think media relations is the field that is so changing so fast. And I look at my career of how it's changed. I mean, I still remember buying Bacon's PR book of Finding Contacts, you know, and doing clips, like literally clipping out clips out of the newspaper. So it has changed so dramatically, and keeping up with the trends and how do we do that? And especially, and I have some very specific things I'll wait till a little bit about what I would love to get more information on. So it's constantly professional development is needed. So that's why I'm on the call today. So thanks for having it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ruth. And it looks like we have a special guest today, and I don't know if he's just observing, he's lurking. Our ACE president, Ricky Tell, also from the University of Florida.
Hello there. Yes, it is beautiful and, well, kind of cloudy. I'm looking out the window there, but yeah, it's pretty warm here in Florida. I'm sorry, I'm looking here. It's 85 degrees. So no, I'm seriously, for those of you in cold, I was there with you a few weeks ago. I was visiting relatives in Texas, and it was cold ice storm stuff. So we can joke, but it is serious situation. So y'all stay warm, stay safe there as well. Again, I'm Ricky Tell in Department of Ag Education, Communication, also direct the Center for Public Issues Education, UF. And I'm here just to kind of listen. I want to say my appreciation to the learning community leaders here to bring this together for an open discussion on how we can do a better job with the ACE organization overall, but specifically how we can meet the needs of our members here. So Chris and others, thank you very much for doing this. So I am here. So ask any questions of me this way or through chat. I'm happy to try to answer them as well. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. And just as we were finishing up introductions, a new person has joined. I don't know their first or last name, but it says C Kick on my screen. We're doing introductions.
Okay, that's correct. My name is Chris Kick, and I'm with Iowa State Extension and Outreach. So.
Oh, sorry for my reaction. I had made a little joke about how there are so many Iowa people in this meeting that we just as an Iowa State. This is an office meeting, basically. It's just they're just having an office meeting together. And now we have another person, and actually this will be the last person. If people come in after this, we're not gonna, we might ask them, but we'll maybe do the introductions. But Diana, you just made in under the gun. We're just finishing up introductions.
Oh, lucky me. Hi, I'm at the University of Florida IFAS. Is there something specific we're saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should tell you. How long have you been an ACE member, and what was your goal for attending today?
So I was an ACE member for a while, a couple years, several years earlier, but I've just joined again this year. So I've been an intermittent member, but I've been working in communications with IFAS for 21 years. Oh. So I've been ACE adjacent for 21 years. But I don't, I work with our publications, not in some of the traditional lines of communications.
So did you have a goal for today?
I wanted to find out what's going on.
Okay, all right, well, great. Oh, and just as I was about to say, we're going to move on to discussion. There's one person who just joined, and we'll just go ahead and get this person in. Well, they're still connecting to audio, so they are connected. So Jen, we are just finishing up introductions. If you want to go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're from and how long you've been an ACE member.
Hello. Sorry, it looks like my video is a little, can you guys hear me? Oh, there I am.
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm Jen Wagaman. I am at Cooperative Extension in Fairbanks at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and I am the new communications manager here. So I've been here since the end of September, and I think this is my second ACE meeting. And I'm planning to come to the big one this summer, and I'm just getting to know you guys and this job and all of the pieces. So thanks for including me.
Well, great. So I did hear some interesting comments made in terms of goals for what they wanted to know more about and why you wanted to come to this meeting. Wanted to ask a little bit, I wanted to jump off on there were a few people who mentioned media outreach, wanting to learn more about, connecting with media, especially if you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of media. Does that seem like something that people are interested in? If you could just sort of nod your head or give a hand raise. We've talked about doing having guest panels, but we've also heard through our surveys that we've done. We didn't do one this past year for our LC, Media Relations and Writing, is that we like to hear from our own folks. What are they doing? We don't have to have like journalists come in all the time to basically tell us that. It's just great to hear from folks. So that would be something that would be interesting. We could maybe if you in the future have like an idea for what some are doing in terms of media relations that seem successful, then we can reach out to those folks. And then I also heard a little bit about just sort of, getting started with how to attend things and do things. So that's basically it. Another starter to think about, and I'm going to throw it open to everybody. If you can talk about if you have one, your biggest challenge with writing or media relations. We've already heard a little bit about that, but also the writing aspect. There are a lot of people in here who obviously do media relations, but they also write. If you have a challenge you want to throw out there, again, for the folks who came in after I sort of did the introduction, this is supposed to just be a freewheeling discussion. You can raise your hand, you can put it in chat, you can just unmute yourself. And then after that, we'll get a little bit into the nitty gritty about some like how we can basically maybe shape these ideas of wants into formal activities. So for the next few minutes, let's just talk about, if you didn't mention at the beginning, if you have a challenge, what are you hoping to get out of like webinars, copy chats, potential, not for this year's ACE conference, but potential ACE conference workshops or sessions? All right, so it was almost, now we got, I was gonna say we got a tie, but Ruth has raised her hand.
Of course, I always do, but here's a suggestion. I would love more information on how to tap into that whole media universe of influencers and other people that are not necessarily tied directly to print media.
Interesting. Or does anybody have any thoughts on that, on media influencers?
I think it would be valuable to learn a little bit more about taking advantage of that, like creating those connections with media influencers, like how you do that, how you go about building those connections and maintaining them. And so, I mean, just to add to what Ruth said, I would see that as a very valuable topic to learn about.
And just for the purpose of just to put a little bit finer point on it, What is a media influencer?
I'll tackle in that.
Okay.
It could be someone who's not even, I think there's this, excuse me, and there's traditional media like CBS, NBC, New York Times. And there's, what do we call this whole other world of people who are publishing in anything from blogs to Twitter to whatever, but they influence stakeholders. So think of those three guys in Iowa who do the fun videos or something, you know, the Peterson brothers or something. They're influencers, you know, are they media? So I'm not looking at media like they influence other journalists, but people that influence our stakeholders groups.
Interesting.
Basically like social media influencers, other online influencers, like she said, like bloggers. Yeah, and that's how I would view it as well, as by media influencer. When she says that, that's what I thought of, is people who are big into social media or bloggers, but they're also involved in, say, the ag science realm. They're somehow involved in our realm and have a high influence in that, but they have their own media platform or outlet that they speak out from. Like finding those people, building that relationship.
Yeah.
How do you build that relationship, and then what can that look like after you build it is something I would be very interested to get insight into.
Interesting. I'm thinking also of, I guess this is a form of blogging, of Substackers. You know, like people who were journalists, worked within, you know, a traditional journalism organization, and then basically went out on their own. We have a very popular sports columnist in Oregon who basically quit the state's paper to do his own Substack and his website. He's basically, it's a very smart thing. He's basically branded himself. He basically has said, I am, but he's no longer under the auspices of that. So that'd be kind of cool to learn more about. What else? What else are you guys all interested in? Okay, Anne had her hand raised earlier.
Yeah, so I think that's an area that would be really interesting. And I am glad somebody brought it up, because I think more and more as our traditional ways of communicating with media are changing, dissipating, really, that this is really important. And also the area of how to communicate with these people, when so often anymore these media influencers are kind of politicized. And so how to do it in a way that is professional and maintains our, kind of neutrality. I think it'd be super important to talk about, get tips about, share thoughts. Another area that I am struggling with as a writer now, being expected, as a longtime writer, being expected to do more with video, is how to develop video scripts. And I know that kind of probably gets into other learning communities' responsibilities, but I think it touches on ours. And so that's one thing that I would look forward to learning more about and getting more assistance in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm actually gonna go to Zach here. Zach, would that be something that you, I mean, because you do, I think you said your digital community, but you also do video.
Yeah.
So do you work with writers on scripts, or do you just do it on your own?
We have one staff writer. We only have 3 people. There's a graphic designer, social media person, a writer, and myself. That's it. So I try not to go to our writer only whenever I have to. So basically, I'll work with the agents or the educators on coming up with it's not really even a script. It's more like a blueprint, and then it just gets tweaked in the editing. So I mean, very rarely will I do actual scripts, unless it has to do with, like, sometimes the university side of our university will buy out my time, and I'll have to shoot with the president of the university. But obviously with that, there are teleprompters and scripts involved, but those are already written by the university relations departments. So no, not really, but sometimes.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting potential webinar about for those university communication shops to do that to have that. And actually, I'm looking at Gail because I was going to go back to her anyway because of her comment when she talked about media relations. But by virtue of Oklahoma State also being another OSU, I have a Google alert set up for OSU Extension, so I get a lot of Oklahoma State Extension media hits, and Oklahoma State does a lot of video, at least in my view. I mean, these, the cow calf corner and all cooking segments. Well, actually, cooking segments are more like in the actual television studio, but then there are some universities are doing like cooking segments in-house and everything. So Gail, could you shed any light on the whole idea of writers working with videographers, or is that for somebody else at OSU?
It's kind of a little bit different situation here. So yes, you mentioned the shows. We have Sunup and Oklahoma Gardening. They are weekly shows that are produced out of our office that are on our PBS affiliate every week. So the director of AgCom services here at Oklahoma State Ag is Lyndall Stout, and she is, a veteran, experienced broadcaster who hosts the Sunup Production Agriculture Show and writes her scripts. And then we have a separate team for the gardening show. But for the rest of us writers in AgCom services, we aren't doing a lot of crossover video writing at the moment. I have a radio background myself, so I feel comfortable doing that. But for the most part, we let our video team and Lyndall's Sunup TV crew team and the Oklahoma gardening team stick to scripts for all of the TV shows.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that. And I did want to ask you, because you had specifically talked about reaching out to the media. Can you expand on that? I think because we have had, like I said, we've had, last year we did a media panel, both on a webinar, this LC, both a webinar and at the ACE conference, we had a media panel of local media in Kansas City. But I think what you're talking about is a little bit different in terms of especially just like finding them, and those are more like the people who were on the other end. They were working media who were saying, this is how we want you to work with us. But you're more on our end, basically saying, how do I just go about finding them and pitching them? Is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit. I attended the conference in Kansas City. Elisa and I both did last year. And I remember sitting in that session, and it was very helpful and valuable to hear those members of the media who were on the board who sat up front and talked, to hear what they do and don't like about, don't send me something on Friday afternoons, or I don't like things in this format or whatever. Like I found that very helpful. But a lot of times, yeah, when we pitch something, when we send out something, we're talking about different audiences all the time. A lot of our content just goes out to like, hey, here's some news, we did this. But then there are also those intentional media pitches. They're not a news release. They're not some kind of story. It's just, here's what happened. Here's a source we have. If you want an interview, contact us now, that kind of thing. And those sometimes will go to our, network affiliates in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and our big newspapers in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and other statewide media. Or other times we think, do we need to dig deeper? What industry publications or channels should we be digging into and trying to contact and reach out for to get our story shared in that way? So we do kind of have a standard of how we send out media pitches, how we send out our news releases. But then again, every educational news piece we write or put together in some way, it's like, okay, do we have the time? Can we step back? Where can this really be useful if we share it with a niche audience or a different sector within agriculture? So a lot of times we're just blindly, here's the news, here's what we wrote. Other times like, oh, okay, we've got these two professors and they said they're available this week and they'll do Zoom and phone interviews. Okay, let's send out a pitch. But yeah, it just varies all the time. And I wonder a lot of times some of these great stories we write, are we missing an opportunity? Just because there's time, we're moving on to our next assignment, we're moving on to other projects, but do we miss an opportunity to find that niche publication who would really like our news and share it on more of a national platform?
That's great. And it did remind me of, thankfully Lisa is such a great note taker, and she's so organized, and we can follow up with some of these things and forming these into more formal activities. Oh, Whitney, you have your hand up. And then after you, unless it spurs more conversation, I did have a question for Julie and John, but go ahead.
Yeah, Gail, I have a question. Can you give an example of where, or a case where you would send out a topic and media, like faculty to talk to or whatever, versus doing your own news release about that subject?
Sure. A really good example would be about a year ago when the Ukrainian crisis first began. We have two very seasoned veteran professors in the Department of Animal and Food Sciences and also in our Department of Ag Economics who know their stuff. They're on our Sun Up show every week giving market updates. Dr. Peel is a livestock market guy, and Dr. Anderson can talk all things crops and grain markets. And when the Ukrainian crisis broke out and we were a week or two into it, and we started wondering about, okay, how is this global events going to affect agriculture and Oklahoma agriculture? Both Dr. Peel and Dr. Anderson were up for taking media interviews. So we did not write any kind of story. There was no news release, no big feature story. It's just we put together a paragraph of 3 sentences, offering it up to media saying, these 2 faculty members, these 2 extension specialists, because they serve in dual roles, can speak to this topic of how the Ukrainian crisis in week 3 or whatever is affecting Oklahoma agriculture directly right now. And we had some Cision statistics put together from that month-long campaign, if you will. And I think they did 8 interviews total, something like that. Like we had several TV stations, larger local newspapers contact us and want to do stories. And granted, that was just on a state level, but that took, an hour to put together after confirming the faculty members were up for taking media interviews. There wasn't a news release. There wasn't a story. It was just a direct pitch. Hey, media, if you want an interview on this, our guys are open to it. And we saw it as a success.
That's great, Gail. And I want to share in the chat for those who might be watching this recording later on, because you can't see the chat in the recording. Ruth made a great point. She said that strategy you were just talking about works really well when current events are happening. You want to leverage that with your experts. And actually, there was a reference to hurricanes earlier. I don't know how you all move forward to do it. I mean, we only have like one natural disaster. It's coming, a big earthquake, and when it happens, we're just going to be it doesn't really matter. We're going to be like, nobody's going to care. But we don't have like these big looming things hit us in the Pacific Northwest. But I do want to ask a question of Julie and John, because you are in areas that I would consider somewhat remote remote geography wise, and also media wise. Julie had made a reference to this. And what do you all, are you interested in hearing about? Because all of us, by virtue, I think almost all of us are in extension, or at least extension or experiment communications. We're working for Land Grant University. Most of us probably are in a state that has, with the exception of Florida, has like maybe 1 or 2 major population centers. And then it's just a bunch of small, papers, radio stations. But I'm curious about like Alaska, especially because of the vastness of it, and Montana because of the vastness of it. How do you, what would you be interested in terms of like doing that kind of outreach in a state where there's just such a small population and it's so big geographically, you don't have that many media outlets?
Well, for Alaska, we're a big state. I was in journalism almost 3 years up here. So it's all very personal. We know all the editors, we know most of the reporters, so we can call them up or email them and say, hey, we've got this thing coming up. Or like right now, we have faculty in a very small town down in Southeast. And so we didn't bother necessarily broadcasting that they were doing this around the state. We just sent it directly to that little small town paper, and it's big up here. Getting things on radio is really the best way to get news out to the smaller communities. What's frustrating for me is that, and I might lose the internet, I'm at home and it's nasty outside, is that we have some really good stories, some really interesting topics that, need a bigger audience, in trying to find a more national outlet, because we are in Alaska, we're like in a foreign country. That gets frustrating. Even Joe, I haven't been able to get anything anywhere with Joe. So
Interesting. John?
Yeah, with Montana, this is a really important topic for us. First of all, I'll just brag on our administration a little bit, and I know this isn't always the case from extension system to extension system, but I have been supported with the freedom and the budget to travel and meet directly with the agents that we have here, and like you said, really remote areas. And one of the first questions I usually ask them is what's the relationship with their local paper? So I can't speak for Julie, but being in Montana for only a year now with limited connections. Now, my spouse did have some media connections that I've taken advantage of before moving here, and I did spend 2 years in Utah. But I've worked a lot one-on-one with our agents in particular, and learning more about the relationships they have with local media and trying to take advantage of those, introducing myself where possible. I've made some connections with our state newspaper and broadcast associations to try to speed that process up, because my position really didn't exist before I hopped on board a year ago. So that's been something that's important. I would be interested in learning more about success strategies that other people in my position have had working with the agents to utilize them when you have a small staff at the state level, to utilize the agents as your filter, to utilize the agents as your direct media contact. And I've had some success with that already. Our agents are, and beyond our agents, our clerical staff, our admins, they've been in contact with me about various different things that have gone on in more rural parts of Montana. So I'd be interested to hear any success stories, learn more from others that have used agents as kind of their mobile media partners. And then lastly, as far as connecting with national media, that's something I just really haven't got around to quite yet. We've had a couple stories, and I've worked through a couple of our specialists on issues related to wildfire, management of wolves, the Endangered Species Act. And we do, I think it was Gail that mentioned earlier, we have a wonderful partnership with Montana PBS. And so that does connect us with some national media there. We have a weekly program that runs about 8 months of the year that features our ag specialists. So yeah, that's a little bit for Montana.
Well, great. Gail has her hand up.
Yes, I was just going to say, with John asking, how can we utilize extension educators, agents more? In Oklahoma, we have an extension office in each of our 77 counties, and not all of them, but many of them have running relationships with that local newspaper or radio station. They might go in once a month and be on the morning show and talk about what community 4-H or extension or other events are coming up. All of the new extension educator training we do, whether that's for 4-H, agriculture, or FCS educators, we always encourage them to find out who their media outlets are in their district, in their county, in their area, and make connection with them. Introduce yourself. I'm the new 4-H educator. I'm going to be helping with a lot of 4-H events over this next spring season. If there's anything you'd like to know, I can get you pictures, or I can get you a quick news release, because small town papers are always looking for that feel good news. So I won't say that all of our educators send us what they write first for approval or review. It's kind of like the Wild West, but we all have good faith in them to do a good job and promote the work of whatever's coming out of their extension office. So that's a way that it's been a long time tradition here in Oklahoma that educators they're aware of who their local small town, hometown newspapers and radio stations are, and they'll submit news to them quite a bit.
Well, that's really interesting, and there's some good tips. It sounds like something that could be expanded upon for a feature coffee chat or webinar. And I do want to segue. We have about 10 or so minutes left. And I did want to ask about, sort of what you all are looking for and more of the, like I said, more of the formal activities. By the way, Lori did mention that we do have fires in Oregon, and I have to admit I'm biased because we just here in the Willamette Valley, we get the smoke, but we don't get the fire. So there are people who have been unfortunately affected by fire in Oregon, and I feel bad that I said we don't have any natural disasters here, and there are people who've had their homes burned down and say, you know what, you need to know more about Oregon. So anyway, but I want to use the remainder of our time, and if we can come back to some things that people wanted to mention and they didn't have a chance to. I wanted to sort of get the mood of the Zoom room here about what the activities you would like to see or do, or what you would prefer to help develop yourself in terms of professional development. General networking. How do y'all feel about general networking? If you can just sort of either, if you have your video on, raise your hand, or put your hand raised in the thing, or a thumbs up. I'm sorry, not raise your hand, a thumbs up. General networking would be of interest to you. I'm starting to see some thumbs come up there, and in video. So that seems like something that you'd be interested in. Webinars. This is actually a coffee chat, so it's not, a webinar is more of a formal kind of thing with a presentation and people ask Q&A. I'm seeing at least one thumb, not a whole lot of thumbs. Oh, now I'm seeing more thumbs. All right. Coffee chats like this.
I missed that one. Could you repeat that last one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Webinars. The last one was webinars.
Okay. I was putting a comment about the previous one, so.
Okay, well, sorry about that. Maybe I'm going too fast, but you can always go back and say, hey, you can unmute and say just what you did. Coffee chats like this, where it's just more of an informal discussion, and we've already heard some interesting tips that are being shared in this coffee chat. Only seeing one thumb for now I'm seeing a few more. Sorry, I know it takes you a little. It takes some lag to actually get to the reactions to actually do the thumb. I forget about how to do them. Okay, so I'm seeing some thumbs there. Workshops. So these would probably be something maybe for like the proposals for the ACE conference, or potential like just outside of the webinar and coffee chat thing. But definitely think conference first. Workshop.
I think that workshops work better when we're in person.
Okay. So a couple of those. We are going to return to workshops here before the meeting ends, a specific workshop, because we do want to ask something about your interest in it. Okay. How many of you are planning to attend ACE? I think I heard some of you say that you're going to attend ACE this year. So just by thumbs, if you can sort of, okay, I'm seeing lots of thumbs. That's good. Ricky's happy. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of thumbs. Okay. And if you're planning to attend the conference, okay, here it is. Here's the punchline. Would a writing workshop be of interest to you, like a 2-hour workshop? Either in the conference, program or outside of the conference program. Lori, sorry, I was interrupting you.
No, I think for me, yeah, it would depend on the topic. I'm in a ridiculous training right now through NIFA that's basically how to be a science writer, and it's like glad that they got us in this workshop that's like eats an hour, 2 hours of my week every week for 8 weeks, because I got this fancy job at NIFA and I should learn how to be a science writer. Okay,
we'll make a note that we won't have 16-hour workshops on how to be a science writer or writing in general. And so that does, you said depends on the topic. I heard a couple of people. What topics would you all be interested in terms of a writing workshop? We're talking about writing here, not media relations.
I don't know if I have anything in particular in mind with writing with that. Like I said, it might be more on the media relations side, that there would be more things that would come to mind to me that I want to gain more from or learn more from. And that's not to say that I don't still need to grow as a writer. There's always going to be room to grow there, but I just know I'm really eager to learn more and grow more on the media relations side. So I don't know if I could think of a particular topic with writing off the top of my head. Now, if somebody suggested something, I might be like, oh yeah, no, I commit 2 hours to that, but I'm just not thinking of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are those-
I would agree with that because I spent a lot of my career writing, but not very much time at all with media relations. So I would be much more, drawn to something like that, especially on best practices and how to get placed, and how to build up those relationships with the journalists, so that when they do think of a subject that they want to cover, they also think of reaching out to APLU, those sorts of things, just best practices.
I do really like Lori's thought on how to train researchers on how to speak with media, because that's been a topic a lot within our department this past year, of more formalizing or coming up with a formalized training for that, so we can be more active in teaching our researchers how to speak to media. So I do like that thought.
And I think Ricky and Ruth, you could speak to this, but I believe ESCOP is known to have a pre-conference workshop at ACE that relates exactly to that. Is that correct?
They're having a post-conference workshop on kind of, sort of, Andrea, looking at how to create a effective communication strategy. So a little bit more comprehensive, but it could absolutely touch on that. In fact, we're looking for how we frame that whole 3-hour workshop. We certainly could include how to talk about research in that workshop, which I think might be valuable. And I'll use this platform to just say, if you are going to do any kind of writing research or any kind of workshop, anything that would help communicators have scientists talk in plain speak. I used to do an exercise with people that would give them something scientific in scientific speech of like, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and translate it back, or give them something as simple as going out for a drink and put it into science speak, so they see how complicated, when they write for a journal, which is appropriate, I'm not knocking that, but how it is a whole different language when we take something to explain their research. So anything like would teach us how to help others do that would be useful. Thank you.
Okay, before we leave this topic, I just wanted to give the floor to Lisa. If you could maybe talk a little bit more specifically and gain the interest or the temperature of this Zoom room in terms of the very specific writing workshop we're hoping to maybe have at the upcoming ACE conference. And it would be more about I'll just let you have the floor, and maybe people can put their thumbs up if they would be interested in attending it.
Sure. So what we're doing is working with a local writer in the area. She actually owns a business. She does writing workshops. She has been a writer has some extensive experience. We actually had an ACE member who was in the area and actually found this and had gone and taken a writing workshop from her, and then come back to the LC and said, hey, this would be really good for other ACE members. So the business in the area is called the Story Parlor. And what we're trying to do is have her come in and do 2 hours from 10 to noon on Sunday. So it would mean you'd have to travel on Saturday. And what we're looking at doing right now is just everything from dealing with resistances and blocks when you're writing. How do you overcome that? How do you overcome overwhelm, which I think we all kind of deal with at this point. I talked to her a little bit about how, we all kind of tend to do the same things over and, we're either writing a news release, we're writing a scientific highlight, or it's kind of, so we want to be creative, but we're kind of in a box to be creative. And how can we be more creative within the box that we're in? So we're formulating that right now as far as what she feels like she can really do in a 2 hours. She likes interactive, which I think when we're in person is good. So she likes to add a little interactivity with it. so it's basically her forte is creative. How do you get creative? So that's kind of what we're looking at. So we're kind of excited about it. We'd need about 10 people to join to make the workshop go. So that's kind of where we're at. So
And there would be a cost.
oh yes,
Yeah, it would be cost outside of the ACE registration.
Yep.
And so I think what is it we're looking at, in order to have a minimum of 10, we're looking at $60 a person.
We can't set that. We don't.
Okay,
set
we can't set it. Okay.
So the ACE National has to set that depending on
Okay, all right. Okay.
everything that's needed, AV and all that stuff. So
Oh, okay, all right. So that's
Yeah.
TBD.
but it's not going to be like $200, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested, if you want to put your thumbs up in this room, I mean, you're not committing to it, but we just wanted to sort of get an idea, because I think we're, it's going to be part of the registration process, and it'd be great if we could get that minimum of 10 to do it. I know that at least a few of us ACE leaders, I'm sorry, ACE leaders, LC leaders do want to attend it. Well, good. I'm seeing at least a few people here who are interested in that. Good. Well, great. And then we do have just a little bit of time left. Topics would be helpful to discuss in other settings. So Lisa, this is something you, I think, put on our sort of prompts, and I can't remember really how we talked about this. So if you have more of an idea of this, topics in other settings outside of, I guess it'd just be like, okay, outside of a webinar, outside of a coffee chat, outside of a workshop. What would an other setting be? Like informal networking one-on-one with people, like just doing, contacting people, say, hey, I heard you say something in a Zoom, and can we just set up a meeting and talk about it? Is that something?
Yeah, so I'm just assuming that everyone here doesn't get, like, ACE is not their end all be all.
Yeah.
So not that it's not great, but I'm just kind of wondering, like, if there's other settings where people are pulling information from and learning things that we can kind of have a resource, an additional resource as a group to kind of go check out. That's what I was.
Oh, good. Okay, I see. Okay.
This is kind of going a very different direction than anything else that we've talked about, but in my mind, it does relate directly to media relations, but something I have a lot of interest in having more professional development in is crisis communications. I actually expressed that to my supervisor recently, that that's an area I would really like to learn more in and develop more in. So that's just some food for thought.
Good. Yeah, ACE's had some crisis communications workshops, but I mean, the last one I remember, and of course with ACE, you have concurrent workshops, and so you can't always go to the ones you have to, and so it'd be nice to have that outside of the conference. Okay, we got one more thing, and I would like to give an opportunity for people who haven't had a chance to speak. If you have anything you'd like to add to this, but I will prompt you with this question. Are there other things that the LC leadership, that would be me, Lisa, and Anne, that we should be considering? Anything. It doesn't have to be topics, doesn't have to be workshops, anything you feel is coming up.
I also wouldn't mind seeing, which I feel like some of them, the coffee chats they go that direction. Some of them go that direction of, I do really enjoy when we have the sessions that are really just more about networking than they are about professional development. That's not to say the professional development part of ACE is really valuable to me and I enjoy it, but I also, particularly going to a conference recently in Oklahoma City, that was the first time that I ever got to sit and genuinely get to know a couple of the ACE members, because we just don't have enough of that, like just being able to visit and get to know each other. And so I kind of do value that, and I feel like there's value in getting to know each other better. So that's also just some food for thought of something I'd like to see a little more of.
That's really interesting. And Ricky, I think when you were talking about the results of the survey, if Ricky, if you're there, I know you're sort of lurking. One of the ideas was, and this has been brought up, of maybe some, because we've always, especially with like these more formal like Zooms, like there's a time zone difference. You know, not everybody can do these at the same time at the time zones. But the idea of maybe having more regional, that is something that will be as part of the ESCOP. Did I say that right? ESCOP, of developing more regional networking. But within ACE, I think it would be kind of cool to have sort of like that. So you don't have to always have to play the time zone, you know, math, basically like, oh, you know, people might be available here, but then they can't because of here. And also just getting to know the people in your region better, probably. Ricky, am I totally botching that?
Well, no, we actually didn't. I didn't actually ask that question about, you know, regions. We used to have, you know, state representatives and whatnot, but that has come up a couple of times in more of these type of approach conversations, including the recent town hall that we had that was brought up about having maybe a more regional flavor with ACE. And I think one of the things that may come out of this upcoming discussions and even the post-conference, by the way, there will probably be a post-conference workshop, like 99% point of they'll be looking at this regional concept here, that ACE probably may have a very strong role to play in that idea in terms of a regional and then a national narrative. So I'm open to any ways that we can strengthen the ACE and with all of our partner groups as well. And if that means a regional capacity or look to what we're doing here, again, I can speak for myself and the upcoming officers. We're open to whatever makes us all stronger as a group, as well as individually in what we're doing across the country. So thank you.
Great. Okay, so now before people start dropping off, Deb, can you make sure that you are able to supply the Lisa, myself, and Anne with both the recording of the coffee chat and the chat itself?
I don't need the chat. I've got it.
Oh, you don't need the chat. That's how great of a note taker Lisa is. She doesn't even need the chat. She's been monitoring everything. So, but yes, thank you for the folks. And is anybody who hadn't talked or hadn't spoken, and you basically say, hey, I got something I gotta talk about. All right, well, I'm gonna play the music unless anybody has anything else.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Guys, have a great rest of your week.